Hi, John. It's very good to see you. How are you today?
Great. Always enjoy our chats. Glad we could be together.
Well, really appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk through this with us. There's been a lot of concern within areas of the government and private industry regarding conflicts that are happening in other parts of the world that we could be drawn into, and uh, the the borders for a cyber conflict are not as distinct as they are for a physical or kinetic conflict. And wanted to get your sense of what organizations should be doing, what should they be focusing on, if in fact they could be facing a nation state or a nation state affiliated threat as a result of some of these kinetic conflicts that are taking place in the world.
Well, the times are as you described them, ones in which the borders that we used to rely on have become ever more porous. I think Tom Friedman in his book, The World is Flat, wrote over 10 years ago, over a decade ago, that what would characterize our times is that these traditional boundaries of interest were going to grow ever more porous. And of course, the rollout of the Internet of Everything has only exacerbated the rate and pace at which that porosity has spread. And of course, that porosity means that the attack vectors through which an adversary might strike have only grown more numerous. And so we face that challenge. And then you add into the mix the complexity and the dynamics of nation state conflicts and the fact that uh, in cyberspace, we've always known and appreciated that the boundaries that would delineate are clearly signaled to us, where our adversary is coming from and who they are and what are their capabilities and what might we expect from them. That that porosity and that ambiguity has just gotten very, very pronounced and hard to grapple with. So it does quickly position or pose the question, if that's the world we're living in today, how might we best position ourselves to respond to that spillover and that possibility that the containment of the conflict might spill over into an area that some of us may have an interest. And unfortunately, the answer to that perhaps differs depending on the sector you sit in and your positioning. Are you a small to medium-sized business? Or are you a large enterprise? What are the resources that you have to draw on financially and otherwise? So if you're a small to medium-sized business, and are challenged in that you maybe don't even have you may not even have a CIO, or if you have a CIO, you surely don't have a CISO, and you're tagging each other to cover certain dimensions of it in an environment where even if you had the money and the resources, we've seen in the press for years now how the community in the world, the global market generally, is challenged when it comes to having enough cybersecurity professionals to staff all the open positions. I think the one figure I saw in terms of the global market was like over 4 million open recs in terms of the talent we need, and it's just not there. So if you want to get into that market and try and capture what resources we do have, you then find yourself in a bidding war with people who have deeper pockets than you clearly have. So it poses a unique challenge, which is why, in addition to this paradigm we see, this paradigm shift from the reactive detection to trying to be proactively preventative, we're also seeing a paradigm shift where the acceptance of a service model, managed security service providers, is becoming more and more accepted, almost out of an expediency that grounds itself in that limited supply of talent, and the fact that the price points that these talents can now command are going to place a lot of people out of the running. And so the evolution of a market in which, if I'm a small business, I can sort of rent my CISO to have them step up and provide for me what I can afford, and that you can engage so that these experts can come in and say, well, look, if you're just starting out, don't be embarrassed that you've ignored this for decades and have been focused on just keeping your business afloat. We'll help prioritize matters for you. And I think, and this is back to I haven't forgot your original question, Steve, but if you're a young or a small to medium-sized business and is sort of now appreciating that you just haven't had time to appreciate this, I think the statistic that I saw years ago by Verizon in their annual threat report that said that most data leakage or problems that are incurred as a direct result of malware viruses. So if you're just starting out, and most people say, well, yeah, I've got virus protection, but it doesn't do me any good, or it requires maintenance in terms of constant updates for the what they call the DAT files, that has become untenable. And the fact that the bad guys have figured out how to morph those files or those signatures almost instantaneously so that your signature-based antivirus just isn't working anymore. I would nonetheless still say that its primary or fundamental is that step that I would recommend everybody needs to re-examine, roll up their sleeves and re-engage, but not engage the old model of signature-based antivirus, but this new paradigm that, of course, BlackBerry is very proud to be championing with the acquisition we made of Silence, but to actually step into the game with the strength and prowess that AI-supported math models now afford in the way of proactive prevention. We heard recently the representative of the CISO organization, Easterly, mention in a recorded program that it's time, given the nature of the world we live in, for us to, and she invoked the old Star Trek commands, shields up. And we understand that. And I can think of no utterance that perhaps reflects the shift or the spirit of being proactively preventative, not waiting to react after the photon torpedo has already wreaked damage on your deck or in your ship, but actually proactively preventing that by shields up before that happens. So that resonates and is very much reflective of this new paradigm of proactive prevention. But I think, Steve, and I'm sorry to wane on here, but I'm not giving you a chance to ask. But I think even more important, as strongly as I resonate with the shields up utterance, there's actually another utterance that I think is just as important and also speaks of shields. But it's the Fraser utterance, and the Romans used to declare or shout this when they were going into battle. They would say, "Lock shields." And it's the locking of the shields that is as critical as just getting the shields up initially, because of the porosity and the interconnectedness that we now experience in today's world. I've seen firsthand in many of my past assignments where our adversaries, particularly those that have the prowess that nation states bring to the battle space, know that in a connected world, if I want to get at McClurg directly, I may not be able to do that because he's got his act together. But I know he's becoming more and more connected with small to medium businesses who he needs and needs to partner with, but who haven't had the resources or the time or the focus to raise their level of security to the point that it should. They know I'm connecting to them, and they will strive and look for an opportunity to strike in the gap. And that's why I say we've got to lock shields. We've got to make sure that that rising tide that we're trying to affect throughout the community actually includes some of these partners, our small to medium businesses, and that we bring them along, because in a connected world, these third-party relationships, as we saw in the SolarWinds affair and even in the recent Okta compromise, these third-party relationships have been identified by these very sophisticated, very capable adversaries as that hole or that gap through which they can strike and pursue their interests.
We're going to share this with our audience and with other CISOs, and I think the next generation of CISOs that need to really understand some of these concepts, because, like it or not, the tide is rising, and it's time to climb into the closest boat and weather this storm. So I think that a lot of the advice that you've given is going to be very helpful for organizations of all sizes, and I thank you.
Well, you're welcome, Steve, and helping all of us. We're all in this together, and making sure we all get raised together is very, very critical. Look
Okay.
forward to future
And I say
discussions.
shields up, and you say,
And locked.
that's right.
Up
Okay,
and
that's our
locked.
advice for today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.